August 5th, 2021 is when this all started. I've been waiting for over 3 years to make this video. This is the craziest story that I have to tell, and this is the most insane thing that I've ever had to deal with when it comes to collecting video games. Before we go back to the very beginning of this story, I want to talk about something that happened earlier in 2024 when I drove up to Everett, Washington to pick up a Crash Bandicoot statue. While I was up there, I also picked up a little Master Chief statue and a pair of Blues Brothers statues. While I was there, the guy who was selling these to me also had one of these Mario statues and a Pikachu statue, but he wasn't quite ready to let those go. That was pretty disappointing because I've been after these statues for years, and the prices on them are just so high that when he had these ones, he had a pretty good price on them, and at the time, I probably could have afforded to get them, but I didn't. Obviously now I have this one here, which you guys have seen, and I'm super happy with it, but the reason that I was disappointed isn't just because I couldn't get these statues that I was seeing for what would have been a very good price, but it's because I already technically owned the Pikachu statue, but after, at that point, 2.5 years or so, I had never seen it in person, and I've never actually had it in my possession. I don't have any sort of script today, and I have a lot of points that I need to hit because this story is so crazy, so please bear with me while I try to get through everything so that you guys can understand how insane this all was. So, going back to 2021, Abby and I were looking at purchasing our first home. And in the process of doing this, we were looking at a bunch of different places, and we happened to look at a spot that was really good, really amazing, would have been perfect for us, for our animals, for the game room, for the collection, everything. But unfortunately, that home sold for like $100,000 over the asking price with a cash offer. So when that fell through, we had some extra money, and we weren't necessarily looking to spend that money on anything, but this all just kind of like fell into place at the right time, and that's kind of how we were even able to start this process. But there was a kiosk collecting group on Facebook, which doesn't exist anymore, but this was the older version. There is a newer one now, but this is the older one, and somebody had posted a Mario statue for sale, and it was a pretty good price. I had messaged the guy on, I believe it was August 5th of 2021. I still have all the messages, so I'm using those to kind of get my bearings here and make sure that I'm not skipping anything. And I was like, hey, I'm interested in the Mario, and he said that he was located in Venezuela. And as you guys may or may not know, Venezuela is not the best place to live now or for the past few years. A lot of people that do live in Venezuela are trying to basically liquidate everything that they own so that they can leave the country. And when this is happening, there's a handful of game stores in Venezuela that have been there for decades, and they have a bunch of signs and statues and kiosks and all this kind of stuff. And this guy has been helping multiple store owners to get rid of some of these rare and expensive items, and selling them in Venezuela, very difficult, but selling them to people in the US, a little bit easier. You just have to deal with shipping. And so we agreed on a price for the Mario statue, and we were trying to figure out shipping. He said that it was going to be through DHL or something like that, and I've never had any bad experiences with DHL. They've always shipped things very quickly, and I've always gotten them. I've never had anything missing or anything like that. And he had to build a wooden crate for the Mario, and we were going back and forth talking about stuff, figuring out when he's going to be able to build this crate, get it shipped, dealing with, you know, worrying about customs fees and like all this other stuff. And while we're going back and forth talking about this, he says, hey, I also have a Pikachu statue. And I get pictures and everything. Needs a little bit of work. It has dead eyes. They're just completely black with no pupils. But the price was right, and so I agreed to purchase that one as well. And so now we're dealing with trying to ship 2 statues, which these things are big, right? And it wasn't this Mario. It was the other one, but they're roughly the same size. They don't weigh that much, but they are large. So it's a very hard thing to ship, even if you were just shipping it within the US. But shipping something from Venezuela to the US, much more difficult. So in the process of going back and forth, we agree on purchasing a few other small items. I got a GameCube box sign for our friend Jackie. She's a big GameCube collector. And also he threw in like a Pokemon Stadium 2 vinyl wall scroll or vinyl banner, a few small things like that. And then eventually he says, hey, I also have a Star Fox statue. And at that point, I was like, I can't afford to add anything else on here unless I can make payments. And he was willing to do that. Obviously, at this point, it had taken weeks, if not months, to try to figure out shipping and get crates built and all this stuff. And so I was able to make payments on the Star Fox statue, and eventually that's where we ended up. It was the 3 statues, the GameCube sign, the banner, and a couple smaller things here and there. And he eventually got the crates built, and it was time to actually ship them, which he did. And I had a tracking number, and I don't think it was DHL. They were shipped on a boat, and they went from Venezuela to Miami, Florida, where they sat, and they sat, and they sat, and I went back and forth with the guy that shipped them. He was trying to talk to the shipping company, and it turns out, unbeknownst to me, possibly him as well, I'm not sure about that, the company that he used to ship this item, to ship these crates, they only ship to Miami. Once it gets into Florida, onto US soil, they say that they're done, basically. And then it was essentially up to me at that point to figure out how to get them from Florida to Washington State, which you couldn't really be further away unless you're taking them to Alaska or Hawaii. So I had no idea what to do because they're in some warehouse somewhere with a shipping company that doesn't speak English, and he's going back and forth with them. I'm going back and forth with him. We're trying to get this figured out because according to him, and definitely according to me, they were supposed to be delivered to my house, not to Florida. I do not live in Florida. I used to, but I never lived in Miami. And so they were just stuck there. And I went back and forth with the guy for months, if not years, trying to get this figured out. And I was essentially coming at it from the perspective of, I already paid for shipping. Shipping was something like $3,000 or more. It was a crazy amount of shipping. And I had already paid that. So in my mind, I should be getting them delivered to me. If he didn't do his due diligence and figure out that they're not going to ship them all the way, then he needs to figure out how to get them to me, right? Because I've already paid so much for shipping. This has been a year-long process at this point. And we're kind of just stuck. And eventually, there is someone who lives in Florida who went to that same exact warehouse to pick up something that they purchased from Venezuela as well. They were lucky enough to live in the area and they could physically just drive over there and pick up their item. While they were there, they saw the Pikachu, which for some reason was not in its crate because they were shipped in crates. So the shipping company took it out of the crate and it was sitting on a shelf or it was on a pallet or something. This guy saw it. It had some sort of tag on it with my phone number, and the guy called me. And I'm super glad that he did, because otherwise they would probably still be sitting there. And he is a relatively well-known person in the community of collecting statues and kiosks and signs, and he was willing to help me get them. And he was able to communicate with the warehouse that they were at, and eventually I got hooked up with a guy named Brandon. Now, I've talked about Brandon before. He's the guy that delivered this beautiful statue and traded me this for the Crash Bandicoot statue. And he started a company that goes around the country and delivers stuff like this to collectors. And so, with the help of the other guy, he put me in contact with Brandon, who I had never dealt with before, and he was able to go down to Florida and pick up the statues. But here's where one of the twists comes in. There were storage fees due on the items because the warehouse that these were stored at was not owned by the person who shipped them or received them. This was some other warehouse that they had put them in, and if I wanted Brandon to be able to take them out of the warehouse that day when he was physically there, I had to pay upwards of $700 in storage fees. I had no idea that this was going to happen. I did not even know that they were stored at a place that wasn't owned by the person who brought them into the country. I thought that it was at the shipping place's warehouse, but it was at a different warehouse. And apparently that guy had other stuff stored there that he had not paid for. And so Brandon was physically there. Brandon does not live in Florida, but he had driven all the way down. And if I wanted him to get them, I had to pay that money. So I did. That was an extra expense that I was not expecting. Now, here's where the second twist comes in, and here's where the deception comes in. Brandon got the statues. He opened up all the crates so that he could make sure that everything was there and that he had everything he was supposed to have and that it wasn't damaged. Well, the Mario statue had its hand completely broken off. And it most likely did not happen in shipping. Now, going back to the messages between me and the person I bought these from, he had sent me pictures of multiple statues over the time that we had been communicating. And at one point, he sent me a picture of 2 Mario statues. One of them had the hand broken off at the wrist, but it was taped on. And then the other one was fine. And I had specifically told him that I want the one that doesn't have the broken hand, and he had agreed to that. And it was my understanding that that's the one I was getting. Not the broken one, but the other one. And I sent the pictures to Brandon, who now had the statues in his possession, and I was like, hey, these are the statues I bought. And he was able to compare the Mario statue he had in front of him to the photo I sent, and he's like, man, this is not the same statue. Not even close. It not only had the broken hand, but it was just in way worse condition overall. And at this point, I feel like I've been scammed, right? Because I paid a certain amount of money for a statue that I had a picture of. I specifically said that's the one I want. And then years later, we figure out that I actually got the worst condition one. And it felt like a bait and switch kind of thing. It's not the biggest issue in the world because it's still a Mario statue. It just had more damage than expected. But I should have been made aware of that. I should have known, you know what I mean? It shouldn't have been like this weird secretive thing. And to this day, I do not know if he purposefully tried to rip me off and switched them out, or if he just got, you know, like he was just misunderstanding, or if he got confused, because I know he was dealing with a lot of these things. He had multiple Mario statues. I could see how it might be a little bit confusing and he maybe sent the wrong one on accident, but he claims that he didn't. He said that it was the one we had agreed upon. Who really knows, right? It wasn't. I know that it wasn't the one, but I don't really know exactly what happened. So at this point, Brandon says, well, we have 2 options. I can either deliver these to you as is, or I can drop them off at my buddy's house who restores these, and he does an amazing job. He's the best in the country, blah, blah, blah. It's going to cost you another chunk of change to get them restored. And I was in a pickle because I didn't know what to do in that situation. So I chose to have him drop them off at this guy's house, which was in Florida. And I had to pay Brandon to pick them up and deliver them. And then, of course, when the guy finished them, Brandon would have to pick them up again and drive them all the way across the country. So the guy who does the restoration, he was incredibly busy. He had a lot of other stuff to work on, and it's not his full-time job. So it actually took him, I want to say, close to a year, or maybe even a year and a half, to finally get them done. And I didn't really have any updates during this time. I didn't know how far along he was. I didn't know if he had even started. And then he sent me a picture of the Star Fox one finished, like a few months ago. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. It looks beautiful. I'm so happy. I'm so excited. And he said, I'm going to start on the other one soon. And then I just kind of forgot about it again because this is a 3-year-long process. I'm not looking at these messages and keeping up with this every day. I have a life to live and a store to run. So a couple months goes by and he sends me another picture with the Pikachu and the Mario completely done. And he said, Brandon is going to be here in about a week to pick them up. And here's what you owe me. And it was a very unexpected bill. Obviously, I knew that I was going to have to pay for these to be done, but I didn't know when it was happening. So all of a sudden, I have a multi-$1,000 bill on top of the extra $700+ I had to pay for storage fees, on top of the $3,000 something I had to pay for shipping, on top of the original price that I paid for these statues. And it's really, really adding up. But according to Brandon, who delivers these things all the time, I still ended up getting a pretty good deal on them, especially now that they are all fully restored and, you know, completely beautiful. So, and because the money was broken up and it wasn't all paid in one lump sum, it doesn't really feel like I had to pay quite that much, although obviously it does add up to a crazy amount of money, which we might talk about towards the end of the video. So Brandon picks them up and he's coming to the Portland Retro Gaming Expo 2024, which just happened, and he has them with him. And so 2 days after the convention is over, he brings them to my house and drops them off, and we film this clip. We got Brandon here, and he delivered some very special items. So I'm gonna go ahead and do a little reveal, show you guys what we got. Starting with the first one.
Ready?
Let's do it. Oh, beautiful.
So
beautiful Mario, completely restored and repainted, and his hand reattached, and a nice little base for him to stand. What's next? What's next?
the next one.
Oh my God! Oh! Pikachu! Same deal, completely repainted and restored, and he didn't have that base, right? None of them had bases?
No, that was the one. That was the Deadeye Pikachu. They had the black eyes.
Oh yeah. All right.
All right. Here's
The last one.
Here's the Mac Daddy. Ready?
Let's do it. Oh yeah. Star Fox. Look at that. Once again, fully repainted and restored with the base. These things are amazing, and thank you for delivering them.
They're epic. They're epic. I'm just glad that they're finally here.
Yeah, it's been a little
journey.
while.
It was a journey, but you know what? It was totally worth it. Totally worth it.
Thank you.
No problem, brother. Glad you got them here.
Brandon then proceeds to tell me that this Mario statue is actually not the one that I got from the guy in Venezuela. Brandon swapped it out for his to give me a better condition one, because with the hand being broken off, when the guy was restoring them, he reattached the hand, he repainted, did all that. He said that it wasn't 100% perfect and it looked a little bit off with the paint job on the wrist and everything like that. Brandon, being such a nice guy, he decided to give me his Mario statue instead, which had also been restored by the same guy, but didn't have excessive damage like the hand being ripped off. So it was perfect, and he kept the one that had the slightly messed up wrist because he said he didn't really care too much, and he knows how much I went through to get these. And so huge shout out to Brandon for being a super cool guy and hooking it up like that, because he definitely did not have to. So in total, including the cost of the 3 statues, the cost of the crates and the shipping from Venezuela to Miami, the storage fee costs, which I got wrong earlier in the video, they were higher, the delivery fee from Brandon, and then also the cost to get all 3 of them restored, came to $18,942 total, which is a lot of money, but like I said, it was paid over time, so it didn't feel like quite that much. But also, that's still a really good price for these 3 statues, because in fully restored condition like this, I have seen them sell for $8,000 to $12,000 each. The Star Fox being the most rare and the most expensive. So I still think in the end, I got a really good price on them. Even with all the extra hidden fees and costs and stuff that I didn't expect, it still turned out to be pretty awesome. So here we are, over 3 years later, and I finally have these statues in my possession. They're here in the game room, and they are beautiful. I love that these 3 are fully restored, and I love that that one is not. It's got a little bit of character. If the statues are really, really rough, I think restoring them is a great option, and these definitely were, as you guys saw earlier in the video. This one, he's got some scuffing and everything, but overall I think he looks pretty good, so I love them, and they're just so perfect. despite all the issues and everything that I had to deal with and keeping this a secret basically for 3 years because I've always wanted to make this video, but I wanted to wait till I had them in person. But all that was worth it in the end. I have also chosen to not reveal the identity of the person that I bought these from because I can't be 100% sure whether the issues we had were on purpose or just a mistake. And I don't want to hold a grudge or be involved in trying to ruin someone's reputation. This person has dealt with a lot of other people and people have reported positive experiences. So I'm hoping that my situation was just a fluke. But if you are involved in this community, if you're a part of the kiosk collecting group on Facebook, it's not that hard to figure out who it is. So I will let you guys decide whether you want to deal with this person or not. Like I said, many people have had positive experiences. So don't take my story as the end all be all. If he has something that you want to buy, I don't know if I would take the risk personally again, but most people seem to have done fine. So that is pretty much it. I want to thank you guys for your support over the years. And if you want to see these in person, you'll be able to come to Double Jump Video Games, which is my game store. Once we open our new location in 2025, these will all be on display so everyone can come and enjoy them. Not only these, but all the other statues and kiosks and signs that I now own. And I just love sharing my collection, not only with my friends when we have game nights and hang out and all that kind of stuff, but with you guys on YouTube as well. So thank you so much for your support. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment, and I will see you guys in the next one.